Welcome to the Clackamas County Commission Budget Committee meeting on May 24th, 2021. We will call to order. I will state for the record the schedule of events for the Budget Committee. Today, May 24, convene the Budget Committee meetings for all 8 county service districts. On Tuesday, May 25 at 8:30 a.m., we will convene the Clackamas County Budget Committee to hear department presentations. We will reconvene May 26 at 8:30 a.m. to hear the remainder of the department presentations. We will reconvene Thursday, May 27 at 8:30 a.m. for Budget Committee deliberations and action. And Gary, don't we have an opportunity in the evening for public testimony?
Yes, on Wednesday, May 26th.
On Wednesday, May 26th, the public will be allowed to testify at 5:30 p.m., and we look forward to hearing everybody from that. Up first is the Water Environment Services. I will ask the Budget Committee members to introduce themselves from the Water Environment Services.
I'll start. Michael Morrow.
Thank you, Michael. Who else? Anybody on Zoom?
Let me. I do not believe so. They all said they would be in person.
I notice there's no link in my calendar, so I'm looking for it online.
Christopher.
We
Oh, we
can
do
wait.
have one.
We can wait.
Christopher Boker.
Chair, perhaps the commissioners would like to introduce themselves because you're also members of this committee.
Let's do that. Commissioners?
Paul Savas, Clackamas County Commissioner.
Good morning, Mark Shull, Clackamas County Commissioner.
Any commissioner online?
Commissioner Fisher's online.
Commissioner Fisher, introduce yourself.
Anya Fisher, Clackamas County Commission.
And Chair Tootie Smith, Clackamas County Commission. Martha Schrader is en route. She will be here shortly. As our Budget Committee members assemble for the Water and Environment Services, please take your seats and introduce yourselves. I see some have just arrived. You, sir, are up next.
David Golby, City Council, City Happy Valley.
Good morning, Roseanne Johnson, Government Affairs for the Home Builders Association of Metropolitan Portland.
Thank you. Anybody online? Christina?
Yes. We have Christopher Boker online.
Please, the members who are on Zoom on the Water Environment Services Budget Committee, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, good morning. This is Christopher Bowker, and I live in the city of Gladstone.
Have all the Budget Committee members for this budget been accounted for, Greg?
No, we're still missing, is Diana Helm?
Who?
No, let's see, we're missing William.
William Gifford, right.
Does he plan on attending?
As far as I knew, he was planning on attending.
Shall we wait 1 minute? It's up to you.
Yeah, apparently some folks are having difficulty getting into the building.
Oh, that's right, the door was locked.
Yes.
Oh. Is somebody letting him in?
Go down and get him.
Yes.
All right, Elizabeth, can you let facilities know to unlock the building this entire week, please?
Go ahead, Mark. You have your badge with you? Good.
Christina, can you send me a link?
Yes.
That would be our fault.
This is our first hybrid budget meeting, so you're all doing fantastic. We're learning as we go. We'll get the kinks worked out here.
Oh, sure we will.
I believe Shannon's running downstairs to.
Oh, thank you.
Shannon's going down.
Oh, good, okay.
see Martha coming in, but I don't see.
Email must be moving slow. Did you send that?
Yeah, I sent it out. It's
He
so
is
much like-
downstairs, correct?
Sent you.
We don't see him on the camera. Do you know if he's coming?
As far as I know, he was, but I think we
Chair, I
can,
recommend we start because we'll get behind all day if we delay
I do,
this.
I do. I was going to say the same thing. Greg, I'm going to have, what we're going to do is we're going to ask for a nomination for chair. Someone from the committee needs to nominate another committee member. Do I hear a nomination for chair for this budget committee? Mr. Morrow.
I think our person on Zoom was going to make that nomination.
Yes, I nominate Michael Morrow.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
The nomination has been made for Michael Morrow to chair this budget committee, and it's been seconded. I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say
Aye.
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 Any opposed on this? It has been, the motion has been made and approved to allow Michael Morrow to chair this budget committee. You may proceed, sir.
All right,
I will
thank you.
just say for the record that Commissioner Martha Schrader has arrived. Welcome.
All right, we need to figure out who we want for our secretary since William is not here.
here's William.
Oh,
Please, that's fine, sir. Just please take your chair and assemble your papers. We're getting ready to make a nomination for secretary for the Water Environment Services Budget Committee.
I nominate William Gifford for secretary.
I'll second the nomination.
okay, it's been moved and seconded that William Gifford be secretary. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
All right, someone in here has their Zoom on, and I think that's interfering with this, so please turn off the volume, turn your sound down, mute off your device, please. Go ahead, Chair.
All right, the ayes have it. First order of business is the presentation of the budget. Mr. Greggeist.
Thank you. Chair Smith, Commissioners, Budget Committee members, my name is Greggeist. I'm the Director of Water Environment Services. With me today is Aaron Blue, who's our Finance Supervisor, and we're going to be presenting our proposed fiscal 21-22 budget. Next slide, please.
Greg, can you speak up, please?
I'm trying. Is that better?
Sometimes you have to shout when you're wearing these masks. I'll just let our Budget Committee people know that. I think you have to talk at a couple volumes higher because these microphones really don't illuminate like you think they do. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. So just a brief overview. WES is an ORS 190 organization, a special service district, and a component unit, a department of Clackamas County. Our mission is to provide water resource recovery and watershed protection services to approximately 190,000 residents in Clackamas County, urbanized areas. Next slide, please. This is our service area. You can see that we're broken up into separate rate zones. I'll go into a little bit more about what those are. We have 5 what we call water resource recovery facilities. They used to be called wastewater treatment plants. 23 pumping stations, over 350 miles of pipe for the sanitary sewer, and over 300 miles of pipe for stormwater. Next slide, please. All right, major accomplishments for this year. We had everything from COVID to wildfires to ice storms. I think the only thing that we didn't hit was famine this year, but we managed to make some pretty major accomplishments. We finished our construction at our Kellogg wastewater treatment plant. 11 rehabilitation and upgrade projects there came to fruition this year. We substantially completed our solids handling upgrade at our Tri-City facility. We're working on a complete rework of our rules and regulations that you will be seeing later this summer. We've modified our billing practices where we temporarily waived penalties and suspended certifications, which is when if people don't pay their bills, we can append that to their property taxes. So we waived that this year and offered payment plans to people impacted by COVID and had difficulty paying their bills. We once again received a AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's, and we launched a new online account management system and interactive voice response telephone pay option. So even though a lot was going on, we got a lot done. Next slide, please. Some of the issues and challenges were just like any other utility. Some of our equipment is aging. We've got aging infrastructure, pipes in the ground, equipment, things like that. We have to make sure that we maintain capacity for growth, operational requirements, regulatory requirements, and enhancing operational resiliency. Next slide, please. So WES's total proposed budget for FY 21-22 is $247,705,206. Yeah, so the major components of that are beginning fund balance, which is the amount carried forward from prior fiscal years, operating revenues, which consists of charges and fees, and other revenue sources, including interest and miscellaneous income, finance from bonds, and state loans, and interfund transfers. The overall budget is an increase of 1.1%, or $2.7 million from the current fiscal year budget, amended budget. The overall increase consists of increases in debt service, interfund transfers, special payments, contingencies, ending fund balances, and reserves that are partially offset by reductions in capital outlay, materials, and operational expenses. Next slide, please. So hopefully you folks can read this. So this is essentially our budget broken down. Yeah, so if we're proposing the beginning fund balance is projected to increase $57.3 million, and that was due to the debt that we issued this current fiscal year. WES does not anticipate issuing debt during fiscal year 21-22 and is budgeted to receive $500,000 of funding from state revolving fund loan as a project contribution for the remaining expenditures for the Tri-City Solids Handling Project. Other significant changes from the current year's budget include reducing spending on capital outlay and materials and services and increased spending for debt service and special payments. Basically, we did a lot of construction this fiscal year, and next year we're going to be doing the design and engineering work for future construction. So as far as the capital program goes, it's a bit of an off year. Aaron, did you want to mention?
We have one update to this slide, and that's in the FY 2021 projected year-end column. The reserve for future expenditures should actually be added to the projected ending fund balance, as that amount won't be spent.
Sandra, I'm going to interrupt you and ask you to speak directly into the microphone, or whoever's
How's that?
speaking.
Hi.
Yes, speak directly into the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Just one update to this slide. In the FY 2021 projected year-end column, the amount in reserve for future expenditures of $8.854 million should be added to the projected ending fund balance, as that amount won't be expended by year-end.
Okay. Next slide, please. So major themes as far as operating revenue goes, we have an increase of 1.4 million or 2.6%. That really is from resuming that delinquent account certification process. We're expecting moderate growth and inflationary rate increases that you'll see proposed, and then inflationary increase in SDC charges. Next slide, please. And then on the expenses side, overall reduction of $8.5 million, or 10.9% from the fiscal year 2021 budget. We see a decrease in capital spending, which I just mentioned, increase in debt service due to the borrowing, new special payments category. Erin, do you want to talk a little bit about the special payments category?
Sure. The special payments category represents what was budgeted in prior fiscal years under materials and services as interagency coordination, and that's the right-of-way fees remitted to other cities and the Good Neighbor Fund contributions. We're recategorizing those expenses to the special payments category, as that category is a better fit for payments for which no goods or services are received in return.
Okay, and then operating budget for the second year in a row, I'm proud to say we've had a slight decrease in our operating budget. This year it's 0.7%, $215,000 decrease in expenses from 2020 to 2021. That's materials and services offset somewhat by an increase in personnel labor costs. All right, next slide, please. Okay, the capital budget, this reflects the continuing need for reinvestment in an aging infrastructure. $25.2 million, $24.1 million of that is on the sanitary side of the house, and surface water is at $1.1 million. The surface water, we're really going to be gearing up for the engineering and design for the Three Creeks Water Quality Project, which is going to be the next big flagship surface water project for Wes. Hopefully we'll get that construction going on that in 2 to 3 years. And then there's various, on the sanitary sewer side, the boring pump station, which we've talked about, improvements to the aeration at Kellogg, which will save, improve operations and save energy, the Tri-City outfall project that hopefully everybody's aware of, and multiple pump station upgrades and work in our collection system. So, next slide, please. From an organizational performance Clackamas structure, we are 4 lines of business and have 11 underlying programs, and you can see them there. Yeah, next slide, please. And this one's tough to read. But you can see on the left-hand side our lines of business, 4 lines of business, and then our program areas and what the total cost is for those, broken out by program. On the right-hand side, you can see the metrics that we use to target whether we meet or exceed our performance Clackamas metrics for those programs. This is a little bit outdated. We're using data from 19 and 20 results. So post or during the pandemic, but you can see on the right-hand side, we're largely meeting or exceeding the performance Clackamas goals. I'll call attention to, it's really tough to read. Watershed protection, where it says 0%, that's actually now at 100%. Under permit services, under environmental services, that we were at 67%, we're now at 100%. Unfortunately, if you look down in operations, the first line item, field operations and maintenance, that's our collection system maintenance, how many miles of pipe we clean, how many miles of pipe we inspect, how many catch basins we clean out. We were at 33%. Meeting or exceeding those targets, and now none of those measures are being met. So that went down to 0%, largely due to COVID. We can no longer put 2 people in a Vector truck, and so it reduced our efficiency greatly out in the field. So some positive things and 1 or 2 negative things. Next slide, please. Some more positive things. For operations and resource recovery in fiscal year 1920, our target was 85%. We were at 93%. We're now at 95%. And as far as another operational metric, wastewater treatment effectiveness rate, we were at 95.52% in 1920, and now we're at 98.23%. Our target there is 100%, and so we're zeroing in on that. And then one of the most interesting ones to me, 30% of streams within Wes's jurisdiction meet or exceed water quality standards. This was a metric that there's a lot of controversy about this. You know, how much impact does Wes really have on all of the streams in our district? But we thought, well, our mission is to protect water quality, and so we should use that metric, even though it was ambitious. In FY 1920, that was 11% of streams meet or exceed water quality standards, and in 2021, that's 44%. So that's really good news, not just for us so that we can meet our targets, but for the region. It shows that water quality in our local streams is improving, and that's a good thing. Next slide, please. So this one, again, is difficult to read. Hopefully you have a hard copy you can refer to. So this is our overall budget by line of business. Really, wanted to call attention. There's one thing that is changed from what you're seeing in front of you, so I want to call attention to that. We added 3 FTE. If you look at the bottom left column, you can see that we added 3 FTE in operations. That are called WES assistants, and they will help with the operation and maintenance of our facilities. Currently, that was being done by the county facilities under an IGA. We met with county facilities, and we both mutually agreed that it would be more efficient, more effective to have that work come under WES's purview. So that's where those 3 FTE are. It's revenue neutral. The IGA that we had with facilities was actually, I think, a little bit more than our projections for the 3 FTE, right in the same ballpark. And then there's another FTE that is not reflected here that I want to call attention to, and that is our risk FTE. We have a safety officer who, until this proposed fiscal year, has been attached to risk in finance. That person is retiring, and so we met with risk and had a discussion, and because we're really a unique industrial type facility, it made sense to move that FTE over into the WES organization and assign them to our operations group. Again, that's revenue neutral because we're currently paying the salary of the safety officer that's in risk. So more FTE, but no more money. Next slide, please. And now we get down to the brass tacks. We're proposing an overall rate adjustment of 0.68% across all of our service zones. We're able to do this. Actually, it would be an average of, I think, 1.4%. But then we were able to essentially whittle that down to an average of 0.68% by delays in initiating the capital projects that we forecast for this coming year, the low borrowing costs, and then using a financial strategy where we use debt for SDC funding, or SDC funds to fund debt. Next slide, please. And once again, we have 3 different components to those rates. It's either wastewater treatment, so Oregon City, West Linn, Gladstone, they own and operate their own collection systems, so they pay what we call a wastewater treatment or a wholesale rate. Local collection, that's where we own and operate the pipes and the pump stations, say for Happy Valley and unincorporated Clackamas County. And then the legacy debt service from years back when the membrane bioreactor was built, and that only applies to rate zone 2. So Johnson City, Milwaukee, unincorporated Clackamas County, and Happy Valley. Next slide, please. And this shows in more detail the highlighted yellow, the actual rate increases depending on what services you're going to be providing. So Johnson City and Milwaukee, there will be 0%. Happy Valley, 0.48%, up to 1.53% for Gladstone. Next slide, please. SDCs, we're proposing an inflationary adjustment, and that's a policy that was proposed to us by our advisory committee, I think 3 years ago, and we may be in the 3rd year of that policy to have just inflationary adjustments. Is that correct? Second year. Second of 2?
Yeah.
Okay, second of 2 years. So next year we'll be taking a hard look at SDCs. All right, next slide, please. So next steps are public hearing and testimony. Happy to answer any questions. Motion to approve, a vote, and then final consideration by the Board of County Commissioners in June of 2021.
Commissioner Savas has a question. Excuse me, Michael.
Yeah, Greg, thanks for your presentation. Not the SDC rate increase, but the general rate increase. I see the small amount, I see that, but I'm kind of concerned, not concerned, but my question is as much capital and carryover as we have, $86 million in the construction fund and 40 some odd million in SDC fund, that carryover seems to be pretty consistent. What are we saving that for?
Future capital projects.
So
according to our financial projection, we needed 5% rate increases kind of moving forward in order to fund our 20-year capital plan. Last year, because of the beginning of the pandemic, we were able to reduce that to about 2.5%, and this year, an average of 0.68%. But we do anticipate needing to ramp the rates back up around that 5% mark in order to meet all of our capital obligations. And we have, in the past, I think, overestimated or underperformed, frankly, our capital improvement plan. But we've since added, what we're limited to is project management. We need to have the staff to manage those big construction projects. And in years past, we haven't. We've added, I think, 3 engineers in the last 2 years. So our goal is to actually bring those projects to fruition. So there will be a lot of cash needed to build those projects.
yeah, so again, I'm looking at the capital section of the book here, and I just don't, pages 120 something through there. I just don't see anything big.
Hey, Paul, can I get you to move your microphone
Sure.
closer?
I don't see
Thank
anything
you kindly.
substantial that would, tell me is there something out there that's a big bite that we can justify $100 million in carryover?
Collection system, we have, I'd have to look through our capital improvement plan, Commissioner
Yeah, I
Salas.
have it open, but if you can point out something, pages 120 some odd, point out which capital project stands up and justifies having $100 million of carryover and a rate increase.
One of them is the Tri-City outfall. The total project budget for that one is $25.5 million. The budget this year is just $1.5 million, but total project cost is considerably higher than that. Clackamas Interceptor, the total project cost is $16.3 million. This year's spending is reduced because of the concentration on design, but as construction starts to get going, those project costs will add up.
Right, so I see the outfall project is scheduled for 24-25, right?
Yes.
Right. So we're pretty adequate there, but if I add up all those numbers, get 47 million altogether over the next 5 years.
Well, our 5-year capital plan is around $230 million.
Okay, is that in here somewhere?
That would be in our capital improvement plan.
Is that in the budget book?
Not in, no.
Page 127 has some of the information. If you go to the bottom of that page, it shows the projected capital spending by fiscal year for the next 4 fiscal years.
Could you repeat what page that is on again?
Page
In the
100.
handout that you provided us?
It's
in the budget book, thank you.
Yeah, it's in the budget book, page 127.
Okay, so I'm just going to take all of those lines on the bottom of page 127, or the bottom of the columns. I'm just going to take that 49 million plus 39 million and just add those together.
So the 22 to 26 CIP was still under development at the time of publication of this document. So we're anticipating some changes in those projections. But yes, that approximates a 5-year spending for our capital group.
Okay. Yeah, if you got something that better displays what that long-range capital is, that'd be helpful. It's not really clear here. Thank you.
Okay, we can certainly add it.
Yeah, we can add that. We can pull it out of our 5-year capital improvement plan. Well, or even just add a total column here.
Yeah.
Rather than we didn't add up the annual total.
Yeah, just something that just demonstrates that having 100-something million plus carryover and all that in SDCs and construction fund is justified in the capital expenditures in a more vivid way. Be nice.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing portion of this. I would remind anyone that wants to testify to please start off with your name and address so we can get it on the record. I don't think we'll need to limit the amount of time, but we usually just limit it to 3 minutes. So try and keep your comments concise. Christine Twilliger will help us facilitate people in the room, which I don't see any. And Dylan Blaylock will help facilitate anybody over Zoom. So is there anybody that wishes to address the Budget Committee?
Thank you very much for that, Chair. Now is the time for people on Zoom with public comment for the Clackamas Water Environment Services budget. If any members of the public would like to comment on the West budget, please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom now. That's at the top or bottom, depending on your device. Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or discussion from the Budget Committee?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Thank you. I always appreciate this department and how hard you work, but I'm going to be a no on the rate increase. Is that motion going to be entertained separately, or is it part of the overall budget?
It's part of the overall budget.
Then I'll have to be a no on your overall budget. I'm sorry it's being presented that way.
Okay.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Yes. On the proposed rate increase sheet, where it lists in yellow the proposed increases for the cities, how do the cities weigh in on it? How do they feel about that rate increase?
Commissioner Scholl, thanks for that question. We did present this proposed budget to our advisory committee, the entire West Advisory Committee, last Thursday evening, and that includes elected representatives from each of the cities as well as other citizen representatives. And we did get, I believe it was unanimous vote for approval.
Okay, and one last question. In the last 5 years, what would be the total rate increase in the last 5 years?
Over the last 5 years, I believe we've averaged, I don't know about the total, but I think the average rate increase has been around 4%, 4.2, is that correct?
4.3?
4.2, I believe.
4.2 average, so over the last 5 years, about maybe a 20% increase in the rate since 2016 or thereabouts.
Sure.
Is that right? Okay.
Sorry, so we have a slight hiccup. So Chair Smith can see the lights of when the commissioners are asking questions, but you're not sitting there right now. We'll work this out for the future meetings, but for now, if you have a question, can you just raise your hand so that Chair Morrow can see you?
Commissioner Skull. Did you have another one?
I think I'm good for now, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other Budget Committee members have any questions?
I got one more.
Okay.
So, Greg, of those capital expenditures that we just talked about, how much of that is growth related?
About half.
About half? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no more discussion?
Sorry, can I?
Yes.
Is this, may the advisory committee members speak, or are we just
go
allocating
ahead.
time for the
No.
board budget committee member? Okay. So Roseanne Johnson, technically workplace address is 1555 Bangor Road in Lake Oswego. So I just want to say, as part of the West Advisory Committee and representing HBA, we are very supportive of this budget. It reflects very strategic, preventative, and well thought out strategy to reduce the rate increases as well as the system development charges, which is what the development community pays for capital improvements that are growth related. Over the past year, we agreed to, as a committee, to support the strategy to use SDCs to pay down debt, which is a Oregon Revised Statute allowance. Very strategic on Wes staff's part. They have also been banging the drum on inflow and infiltration reduction for a number of years, which will also save the ratepayers and a total of $120 million over the next 20 years. Those cost savings are reflected in the budget. Not only this one-year budget, but the 5-year finance plan and the capital improvement plan as well, and then over 20 years. And so those are going to be the biggest cost savings that will be realized. And therefore, I support the minimal nominal rate increase that's reflected in this budget because of what Wes staff and the advisory committee has done in advance to prevent humongous increases that would otherwise occur if we weren't doing these other preventative strategies. So with that, thank you.
All right. Any other comments from Budget Committee members? All right. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the budget.
Christopher Bowker here. I move that the Budget Committee of Clackamas Water Environment Services approve the budget for the 2021 to 2022 fiscal year in the amount of $247,705,206, with appropriations of $118,312,358 as presented.
All right, thanks. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the budget for fiscal year 21-22 in the amount of $247,705,206 with appropriations of $118,312,358 as presented. Is there any further discussion from any of the?
Michael, I'm just going to explain my no vote on this. I would concur with Commissioner Savas that you have $108 million in your capital construction fund, and you also have reserves going forward, and it's because of, I'm sure, of the very fine management. However, we're not out of COVID yet. We don't know when we're going to be out of COVID. And for this budget and any other budgets coming forward, I will be a hard no on any rate increases. I just want to explain that to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay. Oh, yes, Commissioner.
I need to understand, if the rate increase doesn't go through, what is the immediate impact on your operations in FY 2021-22?
I would say immediate impact would be fairly minimal. This is a compounding thing. Back in early 2000s and I think late 90s, there was a series of years where there was no rate increases. And that really put the organization in a hole to the point where we had rate shock when we had to complete a large project. We're still paying for that. Actually, Aaron mentioned that Clean Water Services put together a nice description of kind of that impact. Like Gladstone is a perfect example, and I'm not throwing them under the bus. They talk about it themselves. If we don't continually invest in this, we will get more behind. It's really the out years that we're trying to protect so that we don't have those large rate increases when we have a project that we have to fund.
So one more question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, so if this 0.68 is not approved or doesn't happen, what do you anticipate the rate increase would be next year when we're sitting here?
Something north of 5%.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, and so to piggyback on that, what would the rate increase be if this is approved? What would the rate increase be next year, projected?
Well, I'd say in between 4% and 5%.
So let me get this straight. If we approve this rate increase this year, you're still going to increase rates in the following years? Did I understand that correct?
That is correct.
Well then, holy cow.
And so Greg, could you elaborate, or Aaron, could you elaborate on what that really is going to pay for and what would happen over a series of years if those rates are not increased? It's like including projects that wouldn't get funded, and then what that means for the people experiencing services.
Do you want to take a crack at that?
Sure, I'll try. So the need for capital investment for a utility doesn't really ever stop. We need to continue to build those balances because we will need to fund growth-related infrastructure and replace aging infrastructure as we go on. And it is not uncommon. In fact, I think it's fairly common across the country for utilities in the clean water industry to be projecting 4% to 5% rate increases, like kind of in perpetuity, to fund their long-range capital plans. That's certainly the case with other service providers in our area.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. You know, and I'd love to say which project we wouldn't do or couldn't do, or, you know, what that rate shock might look like, but we haven't forecast that. We haven't really looked into it. It's kind of a truism that if you don't invest now, it's going to cost you more later, especially with this type of large public infrastructure. Yes, oh, sorry.
Commissioner Savas was first, and then Commissioner Schrader.
So, Greg, you mentioned the 4% to 5% increase for next year should this 0.68 move forward. What's the SDC projected rate increase?
Well, we're going to have that conversation with the advisory committee. We agreed to do inflationary adjustments or proposed inflationary adjustments for last year and this year, and we intend to go back to the advisory committee and this body as we revisit our SDC calculations based on our capital plan.
Well, I just want to put this on the record. While I'm very sensitive to adding adding increases to the cost of building things, I know that the history of the district and the existing rate base has been very generous in approving and accepting and paying for all the improvements that have been made. So it seems to me that half the capital plan is growth related, that there should be a similar type increase forecasted for next year to alleviate some of the pressure on the existing rate base. There's a lot of people that are just economically being forced on the street. So, I'm more sensitive to the people who live here today. And so knowing those economic pressures, that's something that you satisfied my question on the capital expenditures and the carryover, so I'm satisfied with that, and I'm going to support the 0.68, but I would prefer, frankly, that if we knew it's going to be 5% next year, that we would do 2.5% this year to soften it next year. That's a big jump. So I don't know, can you explain maybe the rationale of the budget discussions with the committee? Not the budget committee, but the West committee, as to why we're going 0.68 this year and we're leaping to 4.5 next year.
Well, so yes, the advisory committee and Wes worked together and came up with a financial plan and our capital improvement plan, and we were projecting 5% year-over-year rate increases in order to fund that plan. Last year, with the onset of COVID, we were able to make some one-time, and Aaron can probably explain what they were, but some one-time adjustments to put that off. So we were able to reduce that 5% down to 2.5%. Aaron, do you recall what the main factors were?
The main factor is a reduction in our capital outlay budget for next fiscal year of about $14.8 million. The other two factors are funding debt repayment with SDCs to the extent eligible. That gives us some flexibility on our rate profile.
Yeah, I do accept, just so everyone knows, I do accept gradual increases for the very reasons you all stated. And Roseanne, thank you for your comments as well. But that's the part I'm just trying to reconcile, is that why it's so low now and why we went proactively split it in half, so we can get ahead of it. But anyhow, that's my comment.
That would be one approach. We just did it by the numbers. We started with what we needed, and then we had these one-time kind of events that allowed us to pare that down for this time, given COVID and all the other sensitivities. The finance team worked really hard. They're very creative, but we can't, there's only so many rabbits we can pull out of the hat, so to speak.
Yeah, I think
Commissioner Schrader, then someone
Schrader,
online,
yeah.
and then Member Gifford, and you have 5 minutes left, so.
No, I just want to thank the committee for all their hard work that they've done. The advisory committee is one of the best advisory committees I've ever seen, and I think this particular organization is extremely well-run, and I am going to support this budget because I recall that we were in a situation where we were not raising rates, and our infrastructure was starting to fall woefully behind, and to the point where there was danger of a moratorium in our high-growth areas. And I think that is something, if I recall that was a huge issue before, Greg, you took over and managed this to the point where it's supporting not just the infrastructure that's already there and needs to be maintained, but the high growth that we are experiencing despite COVID and other situations we've dealt with out in that east portion of the county, Happy Valley area. So thank you for that. And I, for one, do not think we should allow the infrastructure to fall behind again. That put us in a very bad spot. And I recall that it was quite an issue, and we had to do a huge jump rather than, even though you think these are high, it's still an incremental. But remember, we are growing, and we will continue to grow, and the infrastructure has to keep up. So that's just my comment with that.
All right, online.
Christopher Boker?
Yes, I just wanted to sort of build on what others have said. I think Wes has been very good about communicating budget concerns to the committee, and I really appreciate that. And in the past, we have given them guidance that they should be roughly kind of following or just being aware of what the National Engineering Construction Cost Index is doing, just to make sure that rates do seem appropriate. And so I think they came in under that number. So I think everyone was really supportive with the advisory committee. And I did want to also offer, I do view one of the roles of the committee is as sort of like a sounding board and an opportunity to check rates. So I think next year, if rates do seem unreasonably high in the context of what the economy might be doing, I think that's an excellent time where the advisory committee will come back and say, we think you need to revise these rates if they do seem too high. So I did want to offer that. And thank Wes for all the good work they're doing.
Thank you. Mr. Gifford.
Very briefly, I just want to put a little finer point on both Chris and Director Geist's comments about the SDC rates. We also set a cap on it. So we put a 10% limit that we cannot exceed going forward because exactly of what Commissioner Schrader was talking about some outrageous increases that were necessary because we did not gradually increase the rates.
Okay, so in the vein of time, we need to probably go ahead and call for the vote. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed?
No?
Okay.
Can you pause, Sandra? Do we need to do a roll call on each one to make sure we have a quorum vote?
Yes, there
Okay.
does need to be a poll.
Sorry.
Could you please do the roll call? Thank you.
Christina, are you prepared to do that, or Sandra, or Michael, who's, sorry, we're figuring this out. We'll get this set for today.
Okay, Christina, I can do it. Christopher Bowker,
Aye.
William Gifford,
Aye.
David Golobe,
Aye.
Roseanne Johnson,
Aye.
Michael Morrow,
Aye.
Mark Schull, Commissioner Schull,
Aye.
Chair Tootie Smith,
No.
Chair Martha Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Paul Savas,
Commissioner Paul Savis, aye.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And I'm missing one person.
Commissioner
Sorry.
Fisher.
Oh,
Oh, she has left, okay.
okay, Commissioner Fisher.
She's offline right
And
now.
not absent. Okay, thank you.
So it's 8-1, that is a majority, so that does pass.
Yes, all right. Is there any other business to come before the Budget Committee? All right, seeing none, call the meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.